Judge and May, thank you very much for joining me on 13 Essex Chambers series of podcasts. So here we have Dato Mary Lim, Judge of the Federal Court of Malaysia, the Apex Court. And we have May Tai, who is Managing Partner of Herbert Smith Freehills of Asia. These are, very illustrious positions, and it's very interesting that we have here 3 Malaysian women, all educated in the UK, but all have forged very, very different yet similar paths. And I thought that it might be something that's worth talking about, given that we're at the end of 2020. It's been a very strange year, and perhaps it's a bit of a time for reflection as to who we are and what the future may hold, not just for us, but for other women who may be in sort of similar or aspirational positions as we are. So let's have a chat around that topic, the common divide. And maybe we can start with you. You're way off in Hong Kong, and we still haven't got you back home in Malaysia yet.
Yes, thank you very much, Swee, for inviting me to participate. It's lovely to learn from the both of you. I am constantly amazed by the stories that you tell. So just quickly about me, I went to university in the UK, and then the original plan, Judge will be pleased to know this, was to come back to Malaysia to practice in Malaysia after I graduated, like my brother and a cousin of mine who are both lawyers. But then at the time, all the other UK law students were all applying for training contracts. And then I just thought, why not, do another 2 years living in the UK before going back home. And those 2 years became something like 20 years. So I've been at the firm for 20 years now. I have managed to get close to Malaysia, if not in Malaysia yet. So besides practicing in London, I also practiced in Singapore, Shanghai, Beijing, Tokyo, and then now have been in Hong Kong for the last 7 years. So I think I'm still hovering around, and eventually maybe will make my way back to Malaysia. But it's been a very interesting ride. It's very clear to me that, as a Malaysian woman, as an Asian, as anybody really, you are, whatever you set out to achieve, whatever you want to achieve, it is possible with hard work, and with the right, and saying yes to the right opportunities. So that's why I am where I am at the moment.
Opportunities, I think, is something that we've all had the good fortune to have. But recognizing them and saying yes at the right time also, I'm sure it's really a part and parcel of it. And I feel very fortunate and through my lifetime because of that. But Judge, you have probably the opposite tale from me, coming through the, coming through the civil service and getting to where you are today.
Swee, like me, I must thank you and congratulate you for getting us together on the same page 3 days after Christmas. It's as if it's been one long Christmas in a way. We've all been preparing and trying to open our Christmas present and hoping that it means we can go out and play, but it's not so soon. Yes, it's the same and still different from May. I went to the UK, but actually before UK, I was initially supposed to go to Canada. And that was really to study hotel catering, because I wanted to be able to. Good Lord! Well, it's still the service.
Yeah, well, Judge, in this time of 2020, you've been studying hotel catering. You may be out of a job, but here you are, probably in need.
But I was ready to sign the forms to go to Canada, and I said no. I think I'm going to go back to school, go through my A levels and stuff like this. So I finished with a law degree, got called to the Lincoln's Inn, and then came back and was going to do my chambering in Johor Bahru. And my late mother had made arrangements, my sister as well. I was going to do chambering with somebody, and it was, I think I was going to get about 300 ringgit per month. And I said there was no way I was going to survive on that kind of money. And then my late father suggested to me, why don't you go in and become a magistrate? Go and join the civil service, go in for 6 months, go and get to know some people. And then after that, you can open your own legal firm. And through various people, I arranged for an interview. I won't mention who I went to see. That's another story. That will require a lot longer than our 20 minutes. But I was interviewed by none other than the Attorney General then, Tan Sri Abu Talib, and the late Sultan of Perak, Sultan Azlan Shah. He was then the Chief Judge. So I had no jacket. I was introduced to him and had an interview and was immediately taken in, worked in the Aegis Chambers. Mind you, 6 months. I had to call my father from the then post office, which then later became the court buildings. I called him and I said, Dad, I didn't get to become a magistrate. They're putting me as something like a DPP. My late father said, oh, that's even better than being a magistrate, because the magistrate, as a DPP, you can tell the magistrate what to do. So that's even more powerful than a magistrate. I had no idea what I was signing myself in for. But I went in. Initially, it was posted as an advisory officer. And again, being trained as a barrister, I couldn't even imagine myself behind the desk writing opinions. And then they posted me to the civil litigation department. I worked with people who loved nothing but the law. They had such passion for it. The late Justice Lim Beng Chun, colleagues who Heng Seng, colleagues who have since come and gone. A lot of the federal court judges who retired all went through the civil division. And I stayed there till my 10th year when I decided I had to take a break. And that's when I did my master's. I finally ended in the civil service with about 28 years. That was my 6 months, May. You had 2 years that stretched to 20. Mine was 6 months that stretched to 28 years. And finally retired as the Commissioner for Law Revision. And the Attorney General said, enough, Mary, you can go across to the judiciary. So that's 28 years or so in the civil service. But they were 28 very, very good years. I learned so much. I mean, I was an oddball. Nobody expected me to stay. Everybody asked me, what are you doing here, Mary? You should be out there doing litigation, or, there's basically no space here for you, or no. I didn't seem to belong, yet I did. There was just so much to do, and I loved every minute of it. It was hard work, all the different divisions I went through, but they have helped prepare me to be the judge that I am today. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it without that civil service, those hard years in the Aegis Chambers. I loved every minute.
Really, it's fantastic, Judge, to hear you still have that passion. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's the only thing that makes me get up in the morning and work till 4 o'clock in the morning most nights.
Wow. I would love to know, Judge, how you deal with some of the setbacks and the frustrations that inevitably we all encounter in our long careers. Particularly, it must not be easy dealing with some of the challenges that you faced over the years.
I think one of the things you will have to deal with in civil service is the fact that you're different. You're a minority in terms of gender, you're a minority in terms of race. And I think you go in if you are satisfied with what your lot. And contrary to a lot of people's views, I always felt that I was rich financially, and as far as my work is concerned, there was always more than enough. Perhaps
Compared
But
to,
you've
I'm
been
not
a
a single business.
trailblazer.
sorry.
I've got my breaded handbags and shoes. I've got plenty of that. But I think it's how you live your life.
Agreed, but you've been a trailblazer, you know. I mean, you've been a trailblazer. You were so much a part of drafting the Arbitration Act. You were our first construction judge. All these things, I think, are for a lot of people very inspirational. And yet, you're such a down-to-earth person. So, how does that come about? How do you deal with this
I think
superstardom, so to
it's the
speak?
same with you, Swee. Same with you, May. I think it's being satisfied with a lot that we have, and I think it's not always looking at the neighbor's lot and seeing that, oh, they've got something that I would like to have. I think the work keeps me so busy there is no time to envy somebody else. And then when you make remarks like this, it makes me sit up and say, oh God, I've got a responsibility here. I mentioned this to you before. You suddenly realize, you wake up and you realize that age has caught up. You've got generations behind you, all looking at your seat. I'm happy that's the case, because that's all part and parcel of the circle of life. But I think you've got to own up to the fact that, and I think, Swee, this is why you're doing it. It's inspiring and for the aspiring. We just need to tell them that the journey's not been easy. It's a lot of hard work. May's question, how do you keep going? There are many moments that I wanted to quit. Personal challenges. I'm no inspiration as far as writing opinions, keeping deadlines, even trying to keep this Zoom session. It's tough. But I think it's people like you who, just keep me going. The stories that you tell, Swee, I mean, the way you tell us your story, how you've kept going, Swee. How is it that you're such a giant in this industry? You tell us your story.
I nearly wasn't going to be a lawyer. I went into the law because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my late father was going to study law at the Inner Temple, but World War II broke out, so he never got to go to university. And when I was looking for a course to take up, I knew I wanted to take up something that was professional, but I didn't know what it was. And I certainly was never a science student, so I ended up with the law. And I went through 3 years of university and my year at the bar, totally convinced that I wasn't going to be a lawyer. Absolutely and totally convinced. But like each of you, oh well, since I've graduated, since I've been called to the bar, I better do my chambering. Oh well, after doing my chambering, I should do 1 or 2 years. And look at me, I'm like 30 plus years later. But one thing I will have to say is that specifically construction is the thing that has kept me in the law, because I really enjoy arbitration and construction, where you can and construction is because you look around you and this is your project. And you remember all these wonderful stories. Well, no, not always wonderful, obviously, but they're funny stories. And there's always a story, and there's always a human aspect to any project. It's not just shuffling paper. It's about bricks and mortar and the people behind the bricks and mortar. So I think that all that's amazing. And arbitration has basically given us all, or given me certainly, the flexibility to be able to grow in a space that I enjoy a lot more than being straitjacketed into, in those days, attending court. I've not been to court since the late 90s. I've been to court, I've been before you, Judge, but I've been led. Today I don't go to court at all, and I'm firmly in the arbitration space, which is where May is as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I chose this as a specialty, because there is so much flexibility. You're not constrained by where you are qualified as a lawyer, where you're called to the bar, where you practice. You meet clients from all walks of life and around the world, and you come before arbitrators from all walks of life and around the world. I wanted to also pick up on something you said earlier, Judge, about succession planning and the next generation. I think the next generation can sometimes be quite frustrated that they're not moving fast enough, or they're not being promoted quickly enough. But if they knew how much time people like us spend trying to groom them to take over, I think they would fall off their seats. It is such an enormous task and such a big responsibility, and we so want them to succeed and be well prepared. And particularly for you, Judge, it being such a vital role, an important role to fill, and big shoes to fill, it must be something that occupies quite a lot of your time.
Well, I start off actually, May, when I've got an intern with me right now. Giving them opportunities is something I believe in, and it doesn't matter how young they start. But I always believe in telling people that I was the first to go to university in my home, in my family, and I think I'm about the only one in my family that stayed at the same job 28 years, and more or less the same for the last. This is now 11th year. So I'm not one of those people who keep changing jobs. But I didn't start off where I am. It's been a very, very tough journey. And I used to, when I entered into discussions with my colleagues, I was in awe of them, in fact, terrified. I thought they were so clever. They knew how to string a sentence making perfect legal sense. And I said, God, can I do that? And when people hear me tell them, they don't believe me. And I said, actually, that's the truth, because you don't start off being clever. But what I think I had was that I wanted to give myself a chance. And the only person that could do it is absolutely only yourself. It's between you and the book. Nobody's going to explain to you what the case is about. You just got to find a way. And by the time I found the little keys, I wish I had those keys when I was reading it in my tutorials, preparing for my LLB and bar days. It would have been quite easy to get a first class, actually. But I just wish I had that kind of guide in my time. And that's the reason why I love teaching. I love working with the young ones. So I'm involved in advocacy training. And in any way that I can help, can contribute, I do it.
Everyone listening will be calling you up now, I think.
Yes, but picking up on that, May, you're managing partner of Asia, a very large international law firm, a very well-respected one. And you have so many young people in your charge. How do you feel about that? Because, all three of us have talked about opportunities and how we've grabbed them. But I also do believe that a lot of opportunities are self-created, or rather, maybe not so much self-created, but that you've got to facilitate the opportunities to come your way and be in a position to grab them. I mean, do you see that as something that is important and something that is recurring in your sort of area?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that I work with a number of different lawyers, young lawyers of different nationalities, background, linguistic background, and legal background, it's very interesting because you really see the different characteristics of different young lawyers as they come through. And I agree with everything you say. And the other thing is just mindset as well. I think a lot of people come to challenges. Some of them think, right, this is really hard. I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's fabulous because I'm going to learn so much from doing this next case. And others are really nervous. They're like, I'm not a senior associate yet. So, this is all beyond me. But they would never have been given that piece of work if the partners thought that they were not capable of doing it. Because why would the partner do that, right? Because they just have to rewrite the whole thing again. So, I would just really encourage people to come into something with the best mindset possible. And I think that's what distinguishes the people who really leap forward very, very quickly, and those who are kind of more reticent and take a bit longer.
I mean, I have to confess the fact that I really very much feel the generation gap, so to speak. And I have, as much as I'm very passionate about enabling the young ones, and that's male, female, doesn't matter, just enabling people with opportunities, I do find that it's very difficult for me to necessarily understand where they're coming from and how to react to them. And, this must be a greater challenge for you, May, and for you, Judge, simply because of the people that you're dealing with. I mean, in a way, I as an arbitrator, I lead quite, inverted commas, a lonely life.
I think actually, Swee, it's no different. Pardon me for saying it, lawyers are probably going to get very upset. I mean, it's like when we hear submissions and we're not getting the right focus, right answer, it requires a lot of patience and a lot of careful plodding, balanced plodding and questioning, such that to tune the parties to the correct concerns that the bench has, the solutions and the counter arguments of the other side. And so the judge has to steer very carefully the parties through all that. So the quiet questioning by the, but what do you think about that? So, but why would you say that? But could it not make some sense? And I take this in my handling of the interns as well, and the young ones. And I think that's where we owe a responsibility, as I said earlier. You must, if you own up to the fact that the generation that we are today is because of the people who have been patient with us. And it requires a little bit of forestalling of, I can't do this. I gotta go. They've got to find answers. Nobody told me the answers. I think you've got to forestall that and said, well, what's wrong with giving them a little help, giving them a little hint? And I think sometimes if you do it correctly, it helps them think. And I think that's how it worked with me. I was allowed to develop my thinking skills. I was encouraged to think confidently, be different, be stupid. It's all right. Because in the end, you need to work all that out, because ultimately you're going to write the submission, you're going to write those pleadings, you're going to stand up in court, you're going to build the client, you're going to answer all the difficult questions. So I think it's all right. The journey is difficult, but I think as a senior, as the elder, whichever one you want to call it, I think sometimes we just need, like our parents are to us, tell us the obvious answer. It's all right. We should. To me,
and tell us we're wrong when we are.
But tell us the right answer too. And then, even though the answers came from them, make it look as if we got the answers ourselves. How many times have our parents done that to us?
Absolutely.
And our parents will say, oh my God, you're so clever. But all they did was to plant the idea into our head. And I think that's absolutely, it's no different how we would do it to counsel in open court and how I would do to a trainee.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think that all these things are, we are now actually having to do things that our parents were doing to us, our bosses were doing to us, our supervisors were doing to us. And I absolutely am so grateful for all the opportunities to make the mistakes that I did over the course of my life, because
correct.
That's the best way to learn, right?
Yes.
But sometimes I feel as if that the era in which I grew up, I had more opportunities and more latitude to make some mistakes than sometimes I feel of today's age and today's era of today's young people, that they seem to be under a lot more pressure.
No,
No?
it's us. We are more impatient.
May?
We are more
Are you more impatient, you think, than your parents were?
Well, I think I agree with Judge in the sense that when I think back to how I was given feedback, my supervisor would sit across from me. The draft would be all marked up in reds, but he or she would then explain, why a certain style was preferred or certain use of words. Nowadays, we just do it all online on a computer, with track changes, sometimes not even with track changes, send it back to the junior to tidy up, and then off it goes. No one pauses to give feedback. And even now, appraisals are oftentimes just comments sent online rather than sort of a face-to-face discussion. And yeah, I think a lot more could be done to teach the next generation to pass on knowledge and wisdom.
I want to add something to that as well, because I find that in the years that I have become an arbitrator, where I feel much less pressure from trying to get a client a particular result in the face of possibly a bad case. I'm a little bit more relaxed now. And when I interact with the young ones, I find myself learning a lot more from them than I did previously, simply because I am a little bit more relaxed and therefore a little bit more open to everything, as opposed to just get it done quickly, and find me that answer.
Yes.
So I don't know whether this year of working at home and all the reflection that everybody I'm sure has gone through, whether that's going to hold us in good stead going forward.
It's called being wise. It's part of growing old. The patience come, that wisdom of discerning.
That's a good point that you made, Judge. I suddenly got a few more gray hairs to show for that. Well, Judge and Mayor, I mean, I could go on with you guys for a long more time, and I think that maybe we should bring it to a close here. And the common divide seems to me to be far more common than a divide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely agree.
I'm so proud of the divide, because it's the divide that makes us strong. Because in it, there's so much in common too. I'm so proud of the two of you. Absolutely thrilled to have known you and call you my friends and my sisters. Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Well, yes. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, May, and Happy New Year. And long may this last. Onward and upward.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Take care.